Days in a row. Let me just pull this up here on my telephone. See if I can get the live stream pulled up so that I can see your chats and comments and questions. There we go. Feel free to post any comments or questions there, and I will respond in real time. All right, first up, Webflow eats the web. So a couple of tweets on the topic of Webflow today. First one from Bryant, username Bryant Chow. It's funny when people ask, but can Webflow handle my company's scale and traffic? Isn't it for hobby sites? And talks a little bit about some of their traffic and scale. 100% uptime so far in 2019. So, which is cool. Like not even like 5 nines of uptime or whatever. Like straight up 100%. 1.7 billion page views a month, bursting at 2,000 RP. I don't know what RPS means. Shows how much I know. Webflow is pretty much an Alexa top 50 global website. So aggregating all of their traffic would put them in the top 50, which is pretty impressive. I didn't really know anything about their scale until seeing this tweet, and I was like, wow, this is awesome. Pretty impressive. So yeah, I've got another tweet I'm going to talk about in a second here related to people at Twitter using Webflow, and it's pretty wild. Like it's definitely crossed that threshold from being something for hobbyist websites like my website, a bit of a hobbyist website, and like, pretty serious web properties can run on Webflow, which is pretty cool. How cool would it be if I got Webflow as a sponsor of my no, actually I don't want to have sponsors. Scratch that. All right. Next. Oh yeah. And so on the topic of Webflow, which I have become an increasing fan of. This is a tweet from Paul Stamishew. I'm so bad. What I'm gonna start doing is giving the Twitter username, because that's a lot easier than I probably pronounce the names wrong, and I apologize. Okay. Been doing a ton of designer interviews for Twitter this week in Atlanta, and the most surprising thing I'm seeing, lots of designers using Webflow for various things like responsive designing, user testing, and sharing work, which is super interesting. I assume what he's talking about is designer interviews for. So I don't know if he's talking about interviews of designers that are already working at Twitter and they're doing like UX interviews or whatever, or if he's talking about interviewing potential designer candidates. But the point is that, some obviously high level design talent is using Webflow for a lot of different things. User testing. When he says responsive design, I assume he means building out potential designs for Twitter or Twitter products, or maybe he's talking about, again, candidates that don't work at Twitter that are just using it for other things and sharing work. So it's interesting to see that, people that are interviewing for Twitter are using Webflow real heavily. And I keep seeing from more and more places, people talking about Webflow and using it, pretty seriously. So that is also an interesting data point. First comment in the program. Amanda West, RPS request. Thank you, Amanda. That goes back to the first topic where they talked about the number of requests per second they're getting. That makes a lot of sense. All right, cool. So yeah, Webflow is so the title I put for the video was Webflow Eats the Web, which is a play on the software eats the world refrain, and I gotta get this. There we go. It's just a play on the software eats the world refrain, which is web. All right. Anyways, I didn't need to try and explain it. Okay. Next up in the program, Channelizer from Future Commerce. So, fun episode on Future Commerce yesterday, where they had on Ishani from Gurjal from Madrona Labs, which is kind of a VC It's kind of a what was the word? A startup incubator? Not an incubator exactly, but they do get a little more involved than a typical VC fund in actually helping build startups. Anyways, the topic of the episode, what they talked a lot about, like ideation and kind of a process that Ashani uses in different contexts, and that they did on the actual episode to throw out ideas for different products in the e-commerce space and D2C. It was a cool sort of ideation session. Kind of get to be a fly on the wall, listening to some of the ideas, and it was just a cool little framework that she gave for a simple framework where when you're throwing out ideas, so they threw out a number of different ideas. Channelizer was one of the ones I'll mention. Where You At was another one. Related to supply chain authenticity, and Channelizer related to gamifying channel attribution for customers post sale. But it was so the framework was, hey, when you're ideating, throw out the ideas. It's a no judgment zone, and then you also have to give a name to your idea. Right, which is, so they would just throw out quick, and when you have 3 seconds to create a name, the name is usually kind of silly, but sometimes the name is surprisingly good. Like I think the Where You At name was actually really good, and so then and then the last step of it is that once you're done with the ideation phase, where there's no judgment at all. Oh, and also in addition to no judgment, there's no thought to, is this commercially viable? It's just talk about the idea for the sake of the idea. And then after you're done with that phase, there's okay, everybody has $100 to invest. You can invest that money however you want into whichever ideas you want. And in that phase is where you've got your investor hat on, and you want to invest in the things that you think are commercially viable and that you think are interesting. So just a very simple and fun and I think useful framework for ideating. And one of the ideas that Philip had was what he called Channelizer, where you basically gamify the process of a customer attributing which channels they saw your product or your brand on after the purchase, right? So channel attribution is one of those sticky, messy problems, right? Did they make the purchase because they saw a paid ad on Google, or did they hear word of mouth from a friend, or both? And if so, which one had the most impact on their buying decision, right? And so I thought there was something really brilliant about this, because so much of the time, when you think about channel attribution, like you think about these scientific models, like these machine learning models to like automatically determine which channel a customer came in on. And that's interesting in its own right, like whether that can be done accurately and whatnot. But this is sort of a completely different take on it. I love the idea of gamifying it and maybe giving an incentive. I don't think that what I thought was brilliant about it is, I don't think it's the incentive so much. I mean, the incentive helps. Like maybe just you say, hey, here's $2 to participate, or whatever, $1 or $5. Like, I don't think it's about the amount of money. I think the gamifying it is fun. Like, I think there's something really interesting about that, because like, I can just imagine that being a fun process for the consumer, and the consumer. One of the challenges is that the consumer doesn't totally remember what their own channel attribution is. Like I've experienced that myself. Like maybe I heard about it on a podcast 6 times, on a Tim Ferriss podcast. And then maybe I heard a friend tell me about, like I think about Philip telling me about Webflow. And then I think about ads that I saw for Webflow. So I think that it's almost like a memory exercise for the consumer to try to remember their channel attribution. Like they don't, like when you sign up for something, how did you hear about us? And it's a drop down. Like a lot of times I'm like, well, I want to tell them, but I'm like, I don't remember. And I got to pick from these options. Like there's something interesting there where the consumer actually can do an exercise, and if you make it fun for them, give them a couple bucks for the trouble of like, and I'm imagining a UI that's kind of fun where they can like look at things, like not a drop down, but like a UI that's fun and interactive, where they can click on different things and try to remember what their own attribution is throughout the process, and maybe weight them. Like, maybe there's a slider scale where they can go, oh, that podcast mention, like maybe slide it up so it gets a little bigger. And then like the paid ad they saw, slide it down so it's smaller. And then they're visually seeing a visualization of like the different things that attributed their purchase, And it might be interesting for them too to be like, oh yeah, this is sort of why I made the purchase. Like, that's interesting. So anyways, it was it was a fun episode, and I thought that actually was a really cool idea in there. So if you're not subscribed to Future Commerce, you should go fix that immediately. Go check them out wherever finer podcasts are sold. Okay, next up in the program, multi-currency for Shopify. So this is interesting. I mentioned actually ShopPad, I think yesterday or the day before. I mentioned their automation platform Mesa, and they're coming up again. So want some good news to kick off your weekend? Our currency conversion app Coin now supports checkout in multiple currencies on stores using Shopify payments. So I haven't looked at this real closely, but being in the Magento space deeply, one of the things I hear over and over again are that multi-store and multi-currency are almost one of the biggest reasons why people can't use Shopify effectively. And a lot of times the workaround is to just stand up different Shopify stores for each instance of a multi-store. I know that this is not a full multi-store implementation. It's a multi-currency, and I don't know exactly how it works. But it is interesting to see this gap being filled here, because again, I mean, the number of times I've heard that multi-store and multi-currency being a big component is sort of like can be the biggest sticking point for merchants considering Shopify. It's interesting to see this in here filling the gap, and so that's pretty much all I had to say. I'm sort of curious how it works under the hood. It sounds like it does a conversion at checkout. So I don't know if, for example, on a product page, are you seeing different currencies, right? Are you selecting the currency and then your whole shopping experience is in your currency, or is it just at checkout? I'm not entirely sure, but seems like an interesting solution there. All right, next up, pull this up on the screen, the new Kanye album. And I saw a number of tweets in my timeline yesterday, but this particular one from Ryan Hoover stuck out. How's the new Kanye album? 10 out of 10. It's okay. Not my jam. Haven't heard it yet. I actually didn't vote on it because for me it was in between it's okay and 10 out of 10. So I was like, I don't know which one to pick. But anyways, interesting album. I'm not a gigantic like Kanye person or whatever, but I have been paying more attention to him lately, and I've been actually a gospel fan for quite a while. Little known fact about me there. It just got this is cool. Grant, yeah. Just got a chat in the thing here from Grant Campus. This live. Yes, we're doing live streams here. Actually, this is my 32nd live stream in a row, believe it or not. And I'm going to be talking to Grant actually about Data Studio in a little bit. So check that out. You can stick around for that. But anyways, yeah, so actually I listened to some of it, and it was pretty interesting. The title of the album is Jesus is King. And it's interesting. So I don't know exactly what to say about this, but it's just it's an interesting cultural moment. I think I've heard some things that like Kanye became Christian and some different things, and so that's obviously interesting for those of us that are Christians and that are sort of seeing that. It was interesting. I was listening to the first song is like a straight up gospel song, and then like 3 songs in, it's like cussing and talking about things like that are not Christian. So obviously he's going to have his own spin on Christianity, if and whatnot. So anyways, not this is a little outside of my wheelhouse as far as topics to talk about, but I thought, what the heck, I listened to the album. I saw literally everybody tweeting about the album, and so I thought I would mention it. Interesting sort of cultural moment there. Okay, next up in the program is Google Data Studio. And this is actually where I'm going to mention Grant Kemp, who has talked about Data Studio before, and did an interview with Grant a couple, year or two ago maybe, on Google Analytics. He's a real interesting guy and knows a lot about analytics and whatnot. I think works for Google now. But anyways, I was looking for, let me see where I am here in this tweet. I was tweeting with my buddy Joe Brown, resident no-code expert, about how to hook up Airtable. I want to basically, I've talked a little bit about some of the stuff I'm using Airtable for, with building out a content workflow for some of this content post-production stuff I'm doing. And I wanted to build out some charts against some of this data, which I'll show you right now. And so I was like, oh, how do I do that? Do I use Zapier? It's a little bit of a problem to use Zapier because Zapier can only has a trigger for new records in Airtable. So there isn't a way to first of all, there isn't a way to import initial data as far as I know. And then also there isn't a way to get updated records refreshed. So what I found is a Google Sheets plugin, an Airtable, a Google Sheets plugin for Airtable from a company called Railware, and it's great. So you create a Google Sheet, you install the plugin, you then link it to an Airtable sheet, and it just refreshes your data from Airtable to Google Sheets on a regular basis, on a daily schedule. And so that was cool. That worked great. And then once you have a Google Sheet, you can pull that into Data Studio. And anyways, Data Studio is really cool. I'm going to try to load it up here on the screen. It's just a great I'm not going to show the interface here for creating charts and stuff like that, but it's just taking so long to load up. All right, here we go. So the working title for my content thing is Content Accelerator. And so what I've got here is actually my billing data for my costs for my content team. And I just, from Airtable, again, just pulled that data into a Google Sheet. And now I've got this day-to-day chart, which is one of the things I wanted to sort of have some visibility into. You can create these nice little metrics where this is total amount of money billed. These are total views of content. So that's some of the analytics data. And then, these are the same thing duplicated. Actually, what I wanted to create was a new metric here that showed what I wanted to show here was the number of minutes billed for yesterday dynamically, which I couldn't figure out how to do. That was actually one of the things I tweeted to Grant, and he's helped me out with, so we'll get that figured out. And then you can throw in, there's tons of off the shelf components, right? So this is a table. So this is showing me each piece of content. It's showing me total views, and then this is LinkedIn text views, and it's sorting on the views column. So this is sort of my most popular content. And then this is my team here. This is my billing data, number of billed minutes by day. So this kind of gives me some nice visibility into sort of what happened yesterday. So anyway, it was neat to be able to just quickly create this. Again, this is just part of this whole no-code thing I'm experimenting with, and it's like I'm building out this whole workflow for my team in Airtable, and then I'm like, oh, I need some visibility into things. I need some analytics, and it's like, boom, I've got analytics, and I'm going to continue iterating on this. And so it's just really powerful what you can create. So definitely going to be continuing to mess around with Data Studio. All right, next up, from Tall Seller on Twitter. Everyone should know that world-renowned artist Banksy is now a Shopify merchant. So I've heard about Banksy from a couple places. I don't exactly know who he is, but he's like this world-renowned artist who sells like cool art, I guess. Anyways, it's a cool site. So this is just like a site review. So first of all, cool name. And like the only thing you can do is click on this. So it's sort of taking you into this flow. Like a normal e-commerce site would be like showing you products and stuff, but like it's already unique because I don't know what solutions for wealth means, but it's just interesting. So I click in, and then it's so funny. It's like so retro in a way. Like I have to read about how it works before I can enter the shop, which you would say like, that's bad UX. Like just take me right to the shop. But like there's something fun about this. So the shop is not first come, first serve due to the limited number of products currently available. So yeah, I think the thing that's unique about Banksy is he creates these products that are limited availability. You have until 28th October to browse the shop and register you're interested to buy a product. Please pick one item only and then enter your details and answer the question. Entrants will be selected at random and offered first refusal to make a purchase within 7 working days. That's crazy. It's cool. So it's kind of like an auction, but it seems like it's not an auction on price. Well, yeah, it's not about price. It's about he wants the person who enters the most interesting answer to his question. I'm assuming it's a he. Maybe it's not a he. I don't know who Banksy is. Who is Banksy? I think he's like a mysterious. I heard somebody talk about him. I think he's like a. Here we go. There we go. Banksy is an anonymous England-based street artist, vandal, political activist, and film director. Interesting. So he's a he. All right, so I wasn't wrong there. Satirical street art and subversive epigrams combine dark humor with graffiti executed in distinctive stenciling technique. His works of... Okay, cool. That's wild. All right. Our price promise, never knowingly understood. The artist has price fixed the first consignment of releases at a reduced rate for lower income patrons. That's cool. In most cases, it's far below market value. Please refrain from registering this time if you're a wealthy art collector. Oh, cool. So it's specifically for non-wealthy art collectors. The massive disclaimer, this is not a proper shop. It is an actual shop. It sells stuff and offers refunds and complies with data protection. But all the products are made in an art studio, not a factory. Nice. Everything is produced by a handful of people using recycled materials wherever possible. Cool. Super cool. Gross domestic product. The homewares brand from Banksy. So then here we go. So here are the actual products. So it just has like a random collection of stuff. Is this here? Banksy clock. I'm sure that all of these products are like inside references to things that I'm not getting because I'm not too familiar. This is like a rat. That's crazy. But it gives you the price and the number that are available. And then I guess we apologize in advance for disappointing retail experience. Purchase limited to one item per person. Registry interest below. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, so this is the part where you answer the question in no more than 50 words. Super interesting. Curious how it works. And then you sign up. That's so interesting. Site's a little slow. Maybe it's my internet. Who knows? Maybe it's my live streaming. All right. Met ball thing here. That's interesting. Clutch bag. This is kind of cool. It's like a crazy retro looking clutch bag. And it's crazy. Like only one person can have that. Like, it's so cool. Banksy tagged T. Early learning counting set. That's cool. Banks Squiat. An axe. Banksy Ultra HD TV. What the heck is this? Perfect for the snowflake generation. 55-inch color TV with big Banksy on it, which is totally fine from an art point of view, but does essentially impair viewing quality. So it's not an actual TV. It's just it's just a piece of art that looks like TV. That's so funny. This is hilarious. Banksy vest. Shredded tee. Soft toys. Oh, this one's funny. Life's too short to take advice from a cushion. That's hilarious. Anyways, so that's it. Fascinating website there. All right, last up in the program, remote work statistics. Pull this up here. So this is a brilliant piece of content from FYI, usefyi.com and the team over there, Heaton Shaw. And this is a list of a database, actually, of remote work statistics. I've been, I talk about remote work a lot, and I've been doing it myself, and I'm a fan of it, and we get a lot of remote developers hired through Commerce Hero. So those are my remote work credentials. Anyways, but this is this is just super interesting. Like, I had never had so much of the time when you're looking at content related remote work, you're looking at an article or whatever, but this is a list of statistics, and you can just, they're categorized, they're easy to link to. I'm assuming this is going to grow over time. They'll continue to add to this, but all right, let's just jump into some of these. 42% of remote workers plan to work remotely more frequently than they currently do in the next 5 years, and that more than half of on-site workers want to start. That makes sense. There was a stat I saw here that I didn't believe. Let me see if I can find it. Here we go. VP level roles are the most likely to be fully remote when compared to other types of roles. I do not believe that one. I mean, I'm sure it's true in whatever context, in a certain context, but like in my world, like it's developer roles are by far the most likely to be remote. VP, or generally the more senior you go in management, the more likely you are to need to have an on-site component. But who knows? I mean, I don't know what industry this is. The other cool thing is it mentions the source, which is great. So you can dig into the source more fully there. And I might be a little biased because I'm thinking, about the software development industry. But anyways, there's just a ton of fascinating stuff in here. Between 2013 and 2017, the percentage of LinkedIn, my scrolling just went crazy on me. In 2018, 16, you know what I would love is if you could track which ones you've read and which ones you haven't read. Or if you could have a button to click like, I've read that one, and that way, because I guess that is the one downside to this, is that there's so much that it's hard. Like what I want to know, like I want to read all of these. Like I want to incrementally read all of these. So like it'd be cool if I could like mark them as read or something like that. This is just such a fascinating format for content, to just have a list of statistics, a database of statistics. In 2018, 16% of roles posted on WeWork remotely belonged to fully remote companies. In 2014, only 2% of roles posted were from fully remote companies with no headquarters. Super interesting. Anyways, I could just go through this all day long. 63% of people believe that the 8-hour workday will become obsolete. Totally. You know what else would be cool is if you could upvote these statistics. 43% of U.S. employers already offer their employees remote work opportunities. This is wild. I did not realize the number was so high, because this is not just specific to tech, right? Like I think I think very much about the software development world and tech specifically, where like if I would have seen a statistic that said 43% of tech companies offer remote work opportunities, I would have been like, oh yeah, that sounds reasonable. But the fact that this is all U.S. employers is insane. And of course, remote work opportunities is something that can range from, just 1 day a week from home all the way to fully distributed companies. So there's obviously a spectrum there, but still that's a high number. The smaller the company, the higher the percentage of remote workers. That makes sense. 43% of employees work remotely at least some of the time. That's insanely high. Like this is super interesting. And then just like loneliness, remote challenges. So important. Loneliness and communicating were tied for the top challenge remote workers face. 21% of remote workers named loneliness as their biggest struggle when working remotely. And 21% said collaborating, communicating was their biggest struggle. Totally. This is a huge issue, something that needs to be addressed. There's an opportunity for a product or a service here for sure. I've talked about that before. So anyways, this is fascinating. I'm definitely going to come back to this frequently. And who knows? Maybe I'll contribute something to it at some point. That'd be neat. That'd be nifty. All right. That's all I have in the program today. I hope that you have yourself a fantastic Saturday. And